Synopsis of the fifth tablet. Ninmah arrives on Earth with a group of female nurses. She delivers seeds to grow elixir-providing plants. She brings Enlil news of their out-of-wedlock son Ninurta. In the Abzu, Enki establishes an abode and mining sites. In the Eden, Enlil builds space and other facilities. Nibiruans on Earth number 600. 300 Agigi operate the facilities on Lamu. Exiled for date-raping Sud, Enlil learns of the hidden weapons. Sud becomes Enki's spouse, Ninlil, bears a son, Nanar. Ninmah joins Enki in the Abzu, bears him daughters. Ninki, Enki's spouse, arrives with their son, Marduk. Clans form on Earth as Enki and Enlil beget more sons. Beset by hardships, the Agigi launch a coup against Enlil. Ninurta defeats their leader Anzu in aerial battles. The Anunnaki, driven to produce gold faster, mutiny. Enlil and Ninurta denounce the mutineers. Enki suggests to artificially fashion primitive workers. From the planet Lamu the chariot departed. Toward Earth the journey it continued. Around the moon they made circuits, a way station thereon to explore. Around the Earth they made circuits toward a splashdown slowing. In the waters beside Eridu did Nangal the chariot bring down. To a quay by Enlil constructed they stepped off. Boats were no longer needed. Enlil and Enki their sister with embraces greeted. With Nangal the pilot they locked arms. The heroes, male and female, by the present heroes were with shouts greeted. All that the chariot had brought was quickly unloaded. Rocket ships and sky ships and the tools by Enki designed, and provisions of all kinds. Of all that on Nibiru transpired, of the death and burying of Alelu, Ninmah her brothers told. Of the way station on Lamu and the commanding by Anzu, she to them related. Enki of that uttered approval. Enlil words of bewilderment uttered. That is Anu's decision. His word is unalterable, Ninmah to Enlil was saying. For the malady's relief I have brought, Ninmah to her brothers said. From her pouch a bag of seeds she brought out, seeds in the soil to be sown. A host of bushes from the seed shall sprout, a juicy fruit they will produce. The juice an elixir shall form, for drinking by the heroes it shall be good. Their ailments it will chase away, happier their mood it shall make. In a cool place the seeds need to be sown, by warmth and water need they nourishing. So did Ninmah to her brothers say. The place that for this is perfect I will to you show, Enlil to her said. It is where the landing place was fashioned, where an abode of cedar wood I have made. In Enlil's skyship the two of them, Enlil and Ninmah, skyward soared. To the landing place in the snow-covered mountains by the cedar forest brother and sister went. On the great stone platform the skyship landed. To Enlil's abode they went. Once inside, Enlil embraced her. With favor he kissed Ninmah. "O my sister, my beloved," Enlil to her whispered. By her loins he grabbed her. Into her womb his semen he did not pour. "Of our son Ninurta word I bring you," Ninmah to him softly said. "A young prince he is, for adventure he is ready. To join you on earth he is prepared. If here you stay, let us Ninurta our son bring over," Enlil to her said. To the landing place heroes were arriving. Rocket ships by sky ships to the platform they carried. From the pouch of Ninmah the seeds were obtained. In the valley's soil they were sown. A fruit from Nibiru on earth to be grown. In the sky ship Enlil and Ninmah to Eridu returned. On the way Enlil to her the landscape showed. The Eden's extent to her he showed. From the skies Enlil to her his plans explained. An everlasting plan have I designed, to her he was saying. That which for all time construction shall determine I have laid out. Away from Eridu, where dry land begins, my quarters shall be. Larsa will be its name, a place for directing it shall become. On the banks of the Baranu, the river of deep waters, it will be located. A twin thereof a city shall in future arise, Lagash I shall name it. Between the two on the plains a line have I drawn. 60 leagues thereafter a hilling city shall come into being, A city of your own it shall be. Shurabak, the haven city I shall name it. On the center line it shall be located. To the fourth city it shall be leading. Nibruki, earth's crossing place, I will name it. A bond heaven-earth in it I shall establish. The tablets of destinies it shall house. All missions it will control. With Eridu 5 cities there shall be counted. To eternity they shall exist. On a crystal tablet Enlil to Ninmah the master plan was showing. On the tablet she saw more markings. Of them of Enlil she inquired. Beyond the 5 cities, a chariot place I shall henceforth build. From Nibiru to earth directly to arrive. Enlil to her was responding. Why by Anu's plans for Lamu Enlil was bewildered, Ninmah then understood. My brother, magnificent is your plan for the 5 cities, to him Ninmah was saying. The creation of Shurabak, a city for healing, as my abode, for my own to be, is a matter for which grateful I am. Beyond that plan, do not transgress your father. Your brother, too, do not offend. You are wise as well as beautiful, Enlil to her said. In the Abzu, Enki plans was also conceiving, where to build his house, where for heroes dwelling to prepare, where the bowels of the earth to enter. In his skyship the extent of the Abzu he measured, its districts he did carefully survey. A distant land the Abzu was, beyond the waters from the Eden it was away. A rich land it was, bursting with riches, perfect in fullness. Mighty rivers rushed across the region, great waters there rapidly flowed. An abode by the flowing waters Enki for himself established. To the midst of the Abzu, to a place of pure waters Enki betook himself. In that land, the place of deepness, Enki determined for the heroes into earth's bowels to descend. The earth sputter Enki there established, therewith in the earth a gash to make, by way of tunnels earth's innards to reach, the golden veins to uncover. Nearby that which crunches and that which crushes he emplaced, the gold-bearing ores to crunch and crush, by skyships to be carried, to the landing place in the Cedar Mountains to be brought, therefrom by rocket ships to the way station on Lamu to be transported. On earth more heroes were arriving. Some to the Eden were assigned, some in the Abzu task were given. Larsa and Lagash by Enlil were constructed, Shurabak for Ninmah he did establish. With her therein a host of female healers were dwelling, young ones who give succor. In Nibruki Enlil a bond heaven-earth was assembling, from there all missions to command. Between Eridu and the Abzu Enki was journeying, back and forth for supervising he went. On Lamu, construction was progressing. Heroes from the way station were also arriving. A shar, 2 shars were the preparations lasting. Then Anu gave the word. On earth the 7th day it was, a day of resting by Enki at the beginning decreed. At every place the heroes were assembled, a message from Anu from Nibiru beam they overheard. In the Eden they were assembled. Enlil was there in command. With him was Ninmah. Her host of young ones by her side were assembled. Alagar, who of Eridu was the master, was there. Abgal, who the landing place commanded, also stood. In the Abzu were the heroes assembled. Under the gaze of Enki they stood. With Enki was his vizier Izamud. Nungal, the pilot, was there too. On Lamu the heroes were assembled. With their proud commander Anzu they stood. 600 were on earth, 300 on Lamu were gathered. In all there were 900. The words of Anu the king they all heard. Heroes of Nibiru, you are the saviors. The fate of all is in your hands. Your success shall for eternity be recorded. By glorious names you shall be called. Those who on earth are shall as Anunnaki be known. Those who from heaven to earth came. Those who on Lamu are, Igigi shall be named. Those who observe and see they shall be. All that is required is ready. Let the gold start coming. Let Nibiru be saved. Now, this is the account of Enki and Enlil and Ninmah, their loves and espousals, and by their sons the rivalries. Offspring of Anu the 3 leaders were. By different mothers were they born. Enki was the firstborn son. A concubine of Anu was his mother. Enlil by Antu, the spouse of Anu, was born. The legal heir he thus became. Ninmah by another concubine was mothered, a half-sister of the two half-brothers she was. The firstborn daughter of Anu she was. By her name title Ninmah this was indicated. Greatly beautiful she was, full of wisdom, one quick to learn. Ea, as Enki then was named by Anu to espouse Ninmah, was chosen, thereby their offspring's son the legal successor thereafter to become. Ninmah of Enlil, a dashing commander, was enamored. By him she was seduced. Into her womb his seed he poured. A son from Enlil's seed she bore. Ninurta, the two have named him. By the deed was Anu angered. As punishment, he, Ninmah, ever to be a spouse forbade. Ea, his bride-to-be, by Anu's decree abandoned. A princess named Damkina he instead espoused. A son, an heir to them, was born. Marduk they named him. One in a pure place born, it meant. As for Enlil, a son not by his spousal he had, a spouse by his side to be he did not have. It was on earth, not on Nibiru, that Enlil became espoused. The account of that is one of rape and exile and love that brought forgiveness, and of more sons that were only half-brothers. On earth it was summer. To his abode in the cedar forest Enlil retreated. In the cedar forest was Enlil walking in the cool of the day. In a cool mountain stream some of Ninmah's young ones, to the landing place assigned, were bathing. By the beauty and grace of one, Sud was her name, Enlil was enchanted. To his cedar wood abode Enlil her invited. Come, partake with me in the elixir of Nibiru's fruit that grew here. So to her he said. Sud into Enlil's abode entered. The elixir in a cup to her Enlil presented. Sud drank, Enlil drank too. To her Enlil of intercourse was speaking. Unwilling was the lass. My vagina is too little, it knows not copulation to Enlil, she was saying. To her Enlil of kissing was speaking. Unwilling was the lass. My lips are too small, they know not kissing, to Enlil she was saying. Enlil laughed and embraced her. He laughed and he kissed her. His semen into her womb he poured. To Ninmah, Sud's commander, the immoral deed was reported. Enlil, immoral one, for your deed judgment you shall face. So did Ninmah to Enlil in anger say. In the presence of 50 Anunnaki, 7 who judge were assembled. 7 who judge on Enlil a punishment decreed. Let Enlil from all cities be banished. To a land of no return let him exiled be. In a sky chamber they made Enlil leave the landing place. Abgal was its pilot. To a land of no return Enlil was taken, never to return. In the sky chamber the two of them journeyed. To another land was their direction. There, amidst forbidding mountains, a place of desolation, Abgal, the sky chamber, landed. This your place of exile shall be, Abgal to Enlil was saying. Not perchance have I it chosen, to Enlil he was saying. A secret of Enki in it is hidden. In the nearby cave Enki 7 weapons of terror has hidden. From Alelu's celestial chariot he had them removed. Take the weapons into your possession. With the weapons your freedom attain. So was Abgal to his commander saying. A secret of Enki to Enlil he did reveal. Then from the secret place Abgal departed. Enlil alone was there left. In the Eden, Sud to Ninmah her commander words was speaking. By Enlil's seed am I pregnant. A child of Enlil in my womb has been conceived. Ninmah Sud's words to Enki conveyed. The Lord of earth he was, on earth he was supreme. They summoned Sud before 7 who judge. Will you take Enlil as your spouse, they her ask. Words of consent she uttered. The words by Abgal to Enlil in his exile were conveyed. To espouse Sud, Enlil from his exile was returned. By that did Enki and Ninmah to him a pardon give. Enlil's official spouse Sud was declared. On her the name title Ninlil, Lady of the Command, was bestowed. Thereafter to Ninlil and Enlil a son was born, Nanner, the Bright One. Ninlil him named. He was the first of the Anunnaki on earth to be conceived, one of Nibiru's royal seed on an alien planet to be born. It was after that Enki to Ninmah was speaking. Come be with me in the Abzu. In the midst of the Abzu, in a place of pure waters, an abode have I established. With a bright metal, silver is its name, it is embellished. With a deep blue stone, lapis lazuli, it is adorned. Come, Ninmah, be with me. Your adoration of Enlil abandon. To the Abzu, to the abode of Enki, Ninmah then journeyed. Enki there to her words of loving spoke, of how for each other intended sweet words to her he whispered. You are still my beloved, to her he said, caressing. He embraced her, he kissed her, she caused his phallus to water. Enki his semen into the womb of Ninmah poured. Give me a son, he cried out. She took the semen into her womb, the semen of Enki her impregnated. One day of Nibiru was a month of earth for her. 2 days, 3 days, 4 days of Nibiru like months of earth they were. 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 days of months were completed. The 9th count of motherhood was completed. Ninmah was in travail. To a child she gave birth. The newborn was a female. On the banks of the river in the Abzu, a daughter to Enki, and Ninmah was born. Enki by a daughter was disappointed. Kiss the young one to him, Ninmah said. Kiss the young one, Enki to his vizier Izimud said. A son I desired. A son by my half-sister I must have. Again he kissed Ninmah. By her loins he grabbed her. His semen into her womb he poured. Again she was with child. Again a daughter to Enki she bore. A son by you I must have, Enki to her cried out. Ninmah he kissed again. Thereupon Ninmah against Enki a cursing tittered. Whatever food he ate was poison in his innards. His jaw hurt, his tooth hurt, his ribs were hurting. Izimud the Anunnaki summoned. To Ninmah for relief they were pleading. To distance himself from Ninmah's vulva, Enki by raised arms swore. One by one she his ailments removed. From her curse Enki was freed. To the Eden Ninmah returned, never to be espoused. Anu's command was fulfilled. To earth Enki his spouse Damkina with her son Marduk summoned. Ninki, Lady of Earth, the title she was granted. By her, and by concubines, Enki 5 more sons had. These were their names, Nergal, and Gibel, Ninagal, and Ningazida, and Dumuzi, the youngest. To earth Enlil and Ninmah their son Ninurta summoned. By his spouse Ninlil did Enlil 1 more son have. To Nanar a full brother, Ishkur was his name. 3 sons in all did Enlil have, none by concubines were they born. 2 clans were thus on earth established. Their rivalries to wars did lead. Now this is the account of the mutiny of the Agigi, and how Anzu to death was put for stealing the tablets of destinies punished. From the Abzu, gold from earth's veins to the landing place was carried. Thence Agigi in rocket ships to the way station on Lamu transported. From the planet Lamu in celestial chariots was the precious metal to Nibiru brought. On Nibiru the gold was to the finest dust fashioned. To protect the atmosphere it was employed. Slowly was the breach in the heavens healing. Slowly was Nibiru saved. In the Eden the 5 cities were perfected. Enki in Eridu a sparkling abode made. Upon soil skyward raised he built it. Like a mountain he raised it above the ground. In a good place he built it. Damkina his spouse therein dwelt. To his son Marduk Enki was there wisdom teaching. In Nibruki Enlil the bond heaven-earth established. A sight to see it was. At its center a heavenward tall pillar the sky itself was reaching. On a platform that cannot be overturned it was placed. Therewith the words of Enlil all settlements encompassed. On Lamu and in Nibiru they were heard. From there beams were raised, the heart of all the lands they could search. Its eyes could scan all the lands, its net unwonted approach impossible made. In its lofty house a crown-like chamber was the center. To distant heavens it peered. Toward the horizon was its gaze, the heavenly seemeth it perfected. In its dark hallowed chamber By 12 emblems was the family of the sun marked. On Mies were the secret formulas of sun and moon, Nibiru and earth, and 8 celestial gods recorded. The tablets of destinies in the chamber their hues emitted. With them Enlil all comings and goings oversaw. On earth the Anunnaki toiled. Of work and sustenance they were complaining. By earth's quick cycles they were disturbed. Of the elixir they only small rations were given. In the Eden the Anunnaki toiled. In the Abzu the work was more backbreaking. By teams were Anunnaki sent back to Nibiru, by teams new ones were arriving. The Igigi on Lamu dwelling were the loudest in complaining. When from Lamu to earth they descend, a rest place on earth they were demanding. With Anu did Enlil and Enki words exchange, the king they consulted. Let the leader come to earth, with Anzu have discussions, so did Anu to them say. Anzu to earth from the heavens descended, the words of complaints to Enlil and Enki he delivered. Let Anzu of the workings gain understanding, Enki to Enlil was saying. I will the Abzu to him show, you the bond heaven earth to him reveal. To the words of Enki, Enlil consented. Enki to Anzu the Abzu did show, the toil in the mines to him he presented. Enlil Anzu to Nibruki invited, to the hallowed dark chamber he let him enter. In the innermost sanctuary the tablets of destinies to Anzu he explained. What the Anunnaki in the 5 cities were doing to Anzu was shown. To the Igigi who at the landing place were arriving relief he promised. To discuss the complaints of the Igigi he to Nibruki then returned. A prince among the princes was Anzu, of royal seed his ancestry he counted. Evil thoughts filled his heart when to the bond heaven earth he returned. To take away the tablets of destinies was he scheming. Of the decrees of heaven and earth to take control in his heart he was planning. The removal of the Enlilship in his heart he conceived. To rule Igigi and Anunnaki was his aim. Unsuspecting, Enlil at the entrance to the sanctuary Anzu let be stationed. Unsuspecting Enlil left the sanctuary. For a cooling swim he went away. With evil purpose Anzu the tablets of destinies seized. In a sky chamber he flew away. To the mountain of the sky chambers he swiftly went. There, in the landing place, rebellious Igigi for him were waiting. To declare Anzu king of earth and Lamu, they were preparing. In the sanctuary of Nibruki the brilliance petered out, the humming quieted down, silence in the place prevailed. Suspended were the sacred formulas. In Nibruki Enlil was speechless. By the treachery he was overwhelmed. To Enki angry words he spoke, of the ancestry of Anzu he him questioned. In Nibruki the leaders gathered, the Anunnaki who decree fates with Anu were consulting. Anzu must be seized, the tablets to the sanctuary must be returned, thus did Anu decree. Who shall the rebel face? Who shall the tablets retrieve? The leaders ask each other. With the tablets of destinies in his possession, invincible is Anzu, to each other they were saying. Ninurta, by his mother encouraged, from the assembled stepped forward. Enlil's warrior I shall be, Anzu I shall vanquish, thus was Ninurta saying. To the mountainside Ninurta set his course, to vanquish the fugitive Anzu he undertook. Anzu from his hideout Ninurta was mocking. The tablets are my protection, invincible I am. Lightning darts Ninurta at Anzu directed. The arrows could not approach Anzu, backward they turned. The battle was stilled. Ninurta's weapons Anzu did not vanquish. Enki then to Ninurta counsel gave. With your whirlwind stir up a storm, let the dust cover Anzu's face, let it the wings of his skybird ruffle. For his son Enlil a mighty weapon fashioned, a Tilu missile it was. To your stormer weapon attach it, when wing to wing near at Anzu shoot it. Thus did Enlil his son Ninurta instruct. When wing to wing near each other let the missile fly as a lightning. Again Ninurta in his whirlwind soared. Anzu against him in the skybird rose to challenge. Wing to wing Anzu in anger shouted, This battle will be your destruction. Ninurta the advice of Enki followed. With his whirlwind a dust storm he created. The dust Anzu's face covered, the pinions of his skybird were exposed. Into their midst Ninurta the missile let loose, a fiery brilliance Anzu's pinions engulfed. Like butterflies his wings began to flutter. To the ground Anzu came falling. The earth shook, the skies became darkened. The fallen Anzu Ninurta made captive. From him the tablets he retrieved. From the mountaintop the Igigi were watching. When to the landing place Ninurta came, they trembled and kissed his feet. Ninurta, the captive Abgal and Anunnaki set free. To Anu and Enlil his victory he announced. To Nibruki he then returned. In its innermost chamber the tablets were reinstalled. Once again the brilliance therein returned. The hum of Mies in the tablets was restored. Before the seven who judge, Anzu for a judgment was taken. Enlil and Ninlil his spouse, Enki and his spouse Ninki, the one beforehand as Damkina known, and the sons Nanar and Marduk were there. Ninmah also was in judging. Ninurta of the evil deeds spoke. There was no justification. Let death be the penalty, he said. The Igigi by right were complaining. A rest place on earth they do need, Marduk in counter argued. By his evil deed all the Anunnaki and Igigi Anzu did endanger, Enlil said. Enki and Ninmah with Enlil agreed. The evil must be extinguished, they said. To death by execution the seven judged Anzu. With a killing ray Anzu's life breath was extinguished. Let his body to the vultures be left, Ninurta said. Let him on Lamu be buried, in a cave next to Alelu be laid to rest, Enki was saying. From the same ancestral seed the two of them were. Let Marduk the body to Lamu carry, let Marduk there as commander stay. So was Enki to the judges, suggesting, let it so be, Enlil said. Now this is the account of how Bad Tibera, the metal city, was established, and how in the 40th Shar the Anunnaki and the Abzu mutinied. In the 25th Shar was Anzu judged and executed. The unrest of the Igigi it subdued, but left it simmering. To Lamu Marduk was sent, the spirits of the Igigi to raise, to their well-being pay attention. On earth, changes were by Enlil and Enki discussed to avoid unrest on earth they were considering. The stays on earth are too prolonged, to each other they were saying. Ninmah for counsel they asked. By her changing visage they were alarmed. Gold to Nibiru must more quickly flow. Salvation must be faster provided, they all agreed. Ninurta in the innards of planets learned was he. To his elders words of wisdom he was saying. Let a metal city be established, therein the gold ores to be smelted and refined. Therefrom less weighty cargoes from earth shall be lofted. Each rocket ship more gold could carry, room for Anunnaki to Nibiru return there shall be. Let the tired to Nibiru return, let fresh ones them on earth replace. Enlil and Enki and Ninmah of Ninurta's suggestion were in favor. Anu was consulted, and his approval gave. In the Eden was the metal city planned. On that location Enlil did insist. With materials from Nibiru was it constructed. With tools from Nibiru was it equipped. 3 shars the construction lasted. Bad Tibera was its name given. Ninurta, who made the suggestion, was its first commander. The flow of gold to Nibiru was thereby eased and quickened. Those who to Earth and Lamu at the beginning of the prior times had come, to Nibiru were returning. Al-Algar and Abgal and Nungal among them were. The newcomers who them replaced were younger and eager to the cycles of Earth and Lamu, and the other rigors they were not accustomed. On Nibiru, whence they had come, the breach in the atmosphere was healing. The great calamities on the planet and in its heavens the younger ones did not know. Of their golden mission, excitement, and adventure they especially cherished. As by Ninurta conceived, the ores from the Abzu were delivered. In Bad Tibera they were smelted and refined. By rocket ships to Lamu they were sent. In celestial chariots from Lamu to Nibiru was the pure gold delivered. As by Ninurta conceived, from the Abzu to Nibiru the gold flowed. What was not conceived was unrest by the new-coming Anunnaki, who in the Abzu toiled. Truth be said, Enki to what was brewing heed was not given. To other matters in the Abzu his attention was directing. With that which in the Abzu grows and lives, fascination he acquired. Of the differences between what on earth and what on Nibiru appeared, he wished to learn. How maladies by earth's cycles and atmosphere were caused, he wished to uncover. In the Abzu, by the gushing waters, a wondrous study place he erected. With all manners of tools and equipment he furnished it. House of Life he called the place. To it his son Ningazita he invited. Sacred formulas, tiny me's, the secrets of life and death possessing they shaped. The mysteries of living and dying of earth's creatures they to unravel sought. With some living creatures Enki was especially enamored. They lived among the tall trees, their front legs as hands they were using. In the tall grasses of the steppes, odd creatures were seen, erect they seemed to be walking. Absorbed was Enki in those studies. What was among the Anunnaki brewing he noticed not. First to notice trouble was Ninurta. A lessening of gold ores at Bad Tibera he observed. By Enlil was Ninurta to the Abzu dispatched. What was ongoing to discover. By Inugi, the chief officer, to the excavations he was accompanied. Complaints of the Anunnaki he with his own ears heard. They were backbiting and lamenting. In the excavations they were grumbling. Unbearable is the toil. To Ninurta they were saying. Ninurta this to his uncle Enki reported. Let us Enlil summon, Enki said. Enlil in the Abzu arrived. In a house near the excavations he was stationed. Let us unnerve Enlil in his dwelling, mine-working heroes shouted. Of the heavy work let him relieve us. Let us proclaim war, with hostilities let us gain relief, others shouted. The Anunnaki in the excavations the words of incitement heeded. To their tools they set fire, fire to their axes they put. They troubled Inugi, chief officer of the mining, in the tunnels they him seized. They held him as they went, to the doorway of Enlil's dwelling they made their way. It was night, halfway through the watch it was. Enlil's dwelling they surrounded, their tools as torches they high held. Kaukau, the gateway's guardian, bolted the door, and Nusku aroused. Nusku, Enlil's vizier, roused his lord, got him out of bed, thus saying, My lord, your house is surrounded. Battling Anunnaki to your gate came up. Enlil summoned Enki. Enlil Ninurta summoned to his presence. What do my own eyes see? Is it against me that this thing is done? Thus was Enlil to them saying. Who is of the hostilities the instigator? The Anunnaki stood together. Every single one of us hostilities has declared. Excessive is the toil, our work is heavy, great is the distress. So they were to Enlil saying. Words of the happenings Enlil to Anu beamed. Of what is Enlil accused? Anu inquired. The work, not Enlil, is the trouble causing, Enki to Anu was saying. The lamentation is heavy, every day the complaints we could hear. The gold must be obtained, Anu was saying. The work must continue. Release Inugi for consultations, Enlil to the hostile Anunnaki said. Inugi was released. To the leaders he was thus saying. Ever since Earth's heat has been rising, the toil is excruciating, unbearable it is. Let the rebels to Nibiru return. Let new ones come in their stead, Ninurta said. Perchance new tools you can fashion, Enlil to Enki said, for the Anunnaki heroes the tunnels to avoid. Let us summon my son Ningazita, counsel with hire I wish to take. Enki thus responded. They summoned Ningazita from the house of life he came. With him Enki huddled, words amongst them they exchanged. A solution is possible, Enki was saying. Let us create a Lulu, a primitive worker, the hardship work to take over. Let the being the toil of the Anunnaki carry on his back. Astounded were the besieged leaders, speechless indeed they were. Who ever heard of a being afresh created, a worker who the Anunnaki's work can do? They summoned Ninmah, one who of healing and succor was much knowing. Enki's words to her they repeated. Who ever of such a thing heard? They her asked. The task is unheard of, she to Enki said. All beings from a seed have descended. One being from another over eons did develop. None from nothing ever came. How right you are, my sister, Enki said, smiling. A secret of the Abzu let me to you all reveal. The being that we need, it already exists. All that we have to do is put on it the mark of our essence. Thereby a Lulu, a primitive worker, shall be created, so did Enki to them say. Let us hereby a decision make, a blessing to my plan give, to create a primitive worker, by the mark of our essence to fashion him.